everybody. Sorry I haven't been on here for the last couple of days. I've been working on this thing almost non-stop since I got here, and I just needed a little break, man. I needed a couple of days, and I worked on some other cars for friends and did some stuff of my own, and I just needed a break from this thing. And we've had to make a change of plans here. So, and you'll probably notice, first thing you'll notice is the firewall's on. Well, let me explain what our change of plan is, and then you'll understand. And let me tell you a couple things about putting this firewall on too, because it's kind of like the cowl. It doesn't just fit right in there. So just so you know. All right, let's go. Let's look at it. Okay. Well, you know what? Let me just explain to you my change of plans. Okay, before we look at this, let's just do one thing at a time. So I'm down to about a week and a half before I have to go home. And when I first came here in January to start working on this thing, I was under the assumption that it needed way less work than it does. And it's nobody's fault. It's just, you know, there's things you don't know until you look at it up close. And if you don't have the professional mindset that I do, when I look at this stuff, then you don't see stuff, other people don't see stuff the way I see it. So, and I don't cut corners. I don't cobble stuff together. I want it to be done right. I want it to look right. And it's just, if I'm going to do this, if I'm going to restore this truck, it's going to be beautiful when I'm done with it. And that's just all there is to it. So, it caused me a lot more work than I ever dreamed I would have to do on this thing. And it's put me behind. Fortunately, I've been able to get a lot of the work done that I needed to do, but I was hoping to have this thing done to the point where I could put it on the frame of the S10 and send it to the body shop to have the paint job done on it. And when I come back down here, next time I come back down here, whenever that is, I'd have it painted, and all I have to do is basically just put it together, and then it'd be a running, driving vehicle. But I haven't been able to get to that point yet. That S10 that I drug down here is still sitting out back, and I haven't touched it. So, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to do that. So here's what the plan has changed around. And it actually might be a better plan. It might work out better, because if I paint it, if it's painted while I'm gone, number one, they have to take the parts from the body shop individually and bring them here and put them somewhere and store them until I come back without scratching them or damaging them. That's tough to do, okay? And the other thing is if I do it the way I'm going to do it now, it's less work for me and less risk. So what my plan is now is to go ahead and get the cab assembled. That's why the firewall's on. I've talked to one guy that I know for sure has worked on a lot of these vehicles, and I've read stuff online, and you shouldn't have a problem getting a small block Chevy engine to fit in this thing with the firewall set in the stock location. And the cool thing is you can actually buy plates that move the motor forward or backward to get it where you want it to be. And I can buy the plates that set it back, and if it's too far, I can always re-drill them and move it forward. So it's not a big deal. I can move the mounts and move the transmission where I want it. And of course, the cross member's not even in yet, so I can put it, once I get the motor set, I can put the transmission cross member in wherever I want to put it. So I was a little concerned about that, putting the firewall in, but I was reassured that just put the firewall in, it'll be fine, okay? So what I've been doing the last couple days, or the last couple days, is I got the rain gutters or drip rails welded in, and I'll show those to you. And what else did I do? I went ahead and welded the cowl in on the front because the bolt holes match up for the hood hinges, and everything looks right underneath. Remember I told you, and I almost forgot this, there's two braces, and I'll show those to you. There's two braces that go from the firewall to the one goes to the steering column, the other one goes from the firewall to the bottom of the dash. And the one that goes from the firewall to the bottom of the steering column, you can't get it in there if the firewall is in unless you cut the studs off that mount it and drill them out, and then just put bolts in there or weld new bolts on, which is a pain in the butt. And I was almost ready to start welding that firewall in. I remember, oh crap, I just told these guys don't forget that, and I almost forgot it. So I had to take the cowl back off, and I tried to put it in there with it screwed in place and everything. It wasn't going. So I literally had to take all the screws out, had to take the cowl back off, completely, put that piece on, bolt it to the cowl, and then put the cowl on with it on there, and then I put it together, and everything lines up, all the bolt holes line up, so I'm very confident that the cowl is where it should be. So I went ahead and welded it in place tonight, and I'll show that to you too. I'll show you how I did it. And this thing is way stronger than the factory ever made it. So I mean, this truck is the cab of this truck is going to be very good. God help me if it's ever an accident, but it'll definitely protect whoever's driving the vehicle. So so I did that, and then I decided I want to put the cowl on, and I haven't started welding it yet, as you can see, but I had some issues with it. Let me show those to you. So that's anyhow, what I was going to say was the plan is to get everything assembled, get everything ready to go to the paint shop as far as the body goes before I leave. And then it's going to go to the paint shop, and he's going to do all the body work on it, or all the major body work. I mean, there's going to be obviously a little bit when it goes back to be actually painted, because everything's not going to be perfect. But he's going to do the major body work on it. He's going to put an epoxy primer so it's protected from rusting, and he's going to cut in the panels. If you know what that means is anywhere two panels come together, like in a door jamb or the inside of the door, where the fenders bolt to the body. He's gonna paint those black, okay? Because when I come back, if they're already cut in, then I can literally assemble the truck at one time and get everything together, and those areas are already painted, so I don't have to take it back apart to have them painted. They're already done. So I can assemble the truck one time and send it to the paint shop as a complete truck, and he can paint it, and it's done. I don't have to worry about it. I mean, the only thing that probably won't be assembled is the bed probably won't be on the frame, because he's going to have to pull the bed. Well, it'll be on the frame, but he's going to have to pull it back enough to paint the back of the cab and the front of the bed, but it'll be assembled on the truck. It just won't be attached to the frame. So that's the plan. And I think that's a lot better idea, because if I took this thing and all the parts to the body shop and had it painted while I was gone, my brother or someone took it to have it painted, and then tried to bring all those parts back here and store them somewhere until I can get back out there, which is probably not going to be until later this year. You know, there's a good chance that one of them's going to get damaged or scratched, then you got to do touch-up paint. Excuse me. This way here, it's just in primer. The only thing that's painted is the areas that aren't going to be seen. So even if them areas get scratched, I can touch those up myself and bolt the truck together. Send it, you know, obviously I won't have lights or glass or all that in it, or the interior, but I'll put it all together, literally everything, the interior, the lights, everything. I'll put it all together, and then know everything's going to fit, and then I'll take off the stuff I have to take off. I mean, I won't put the glass in, because I mean, the glass is going to fit. I haven't done anything to the windshield except put the cowl on, and it matched up to the old windshield line, so it's fine. So I'm going to put, you know, all the dash pieces in, put the lights in, put the running boards on, you know, put all the pieces on the truck, door handles and all that, and make sure everything fits the way it should. That way, if I have to cut a hole, drill a hole, or modify something to make it fit, then I can do it while it's in primer, and then I'll take the unnecessary stuff off the truck and send it to the body shop and have a final paint job done on it. And then when I get it back, all I got to do is assemble basically the outer items, the lights and the handles and things like that, and then it's ready to go to the owner. So that's what we're going to do. I think that's a good idea. I think it's going to work well for me. And plus, the paint job can be paid for in two steps. The primer, the epoxy primer and the body can be paid for now, and then later on the paint job can be paid for. So that's easier on the person paying for the paint work. They don't have to go with all that money all at once. And so that's the plan. We're going to do it for now. I still have to mount the doors on it, because I do want to do that before I put these lower cowl pieces on it. I think I could probably put them on there and they'd be fine. And I may just go ahead and do it. I don't know. We'll see. I think they're probably close enough, because they look like they lined up really well. So I think they'll be okay. But I may just bolt the doors on and you know, see how they look real quick before I send it to the body shop. Okay, so let me talk to you about this firewall and what it takes to get this thing in. So the firewall on this truck is a little bit tricky, because part of it goes under the cowl and the rest of it doesn't. So when you put this thing in, it's got, let me show you up underneath here, it's got two braces. See those two braces right there? Right there's one, and right there is one. Those two braces go up the wall of the cowl. So they have to be on the inside, okay? But then on the outside, whoops, I think I'm zoomed in or something. Well, maybe I'm not. Oh, there we go. Okay. So on the outside, this lip here goes over the top of the cowl. But down here, these pieces, the original pieces, they were folded over the old cowl, and I had to cut the welds out and bend them up to get the old cowl out. So I had to bend them up and then slide this in from the top, and then I had to align all this bottom area. And it wasn't too bad except for the corners. The corners are shaped, this one here is kind of bent, but the corners are shaped like this, a rounded shape, and they're actually supposed to go right in there. But of course this cowl comes down and then makes a little jog like that. So what I did, there's a hole, as you can see, there's a hole in the corner of this cab corner of this cowl, this firewall. So I use that hole as kind of a reference, and I cut on one side of it about a 1/2 inch away from it, and then I cut above it about a 1/2 inch, probably 3/4 inch on the side. And I cut that piece out on that corner and this corner. And here's the other piece. You can see it a little better. It's not bent like the other one was. So I had to cut that piece out of the corner because it's more of a kind of an L shape with this little dog leg down here. It's not just a rounded corner. So I got to fix that. I'm not sure how I'm going to do that. I thought about cutting it along this edge here, cutting it and then folding this over. But if I do that, this is a curved surface. I'd have to cut slots in this to get it to fold over correctly. But I think what I'm probably just going to do is just make a new piece to go in here and fit that in there. Maybe I can show you that to you when I'm done. Now this side here, when I took it apart, the inner cowl is, the bottom piece of that fold over piece, the inner cowl is the kick panel. That's part of that. Well, this one here was rusted all the way up to the top of it, so I had to cut that piece out, so I don't have anything here. But there's a little bit of a lip on this side, as you can see. So what I'm probably going to do is just once I get this thing welded everywhere else, I'll just take a hammer and gently bend that over and then weld it solid. And these things here, these tabs, I don't really like them. I think they're kind of ugly. So I think what I'm going to do with these tabs is I got them screwed out here. I'm going to weld the 3 holes I've got drilled here, and then I'm going to cut it off right on the other side of those holes and take that piece out and just have a shorter piece in there. I think it'll look a lot better with that. It'll look a lot cleaner. So I think that's what I'm going to do with that. It's kind of weird because this part goes under, and then you got to transition to this, so this part goes over. So you got kind of a messed up area here, but you know, I can weld and grind on that and make it a lot smoother. And as you can see, the cowl lines up real nice all the way across. It looks good. I got to put screws all the way across the top there, and then I'll weld it. I don't think I'm going to weld around the seam here because it's a nice clean line. I think I'm just going to put seam sealer in there and seal it. Or actually, yeah, I'll put seam sealer in there because I don't want water to get in there. So I'll put seam sealer in there and seal it. And then along the bottom here, in the sides, I've got quite a few screws along here, but I've got quite a few along here, but not as many. But again, on the inside, these 2 seams, the floor pan and the firewall seam, they line up really well. So they come together in kind of a V pattern. You know, I don't know. I'll show it if you can see it there. See how they come together? So they fit real nice. This firewall, I'm amazed at how well it fits. I mean, all I had to do was modify those corners. What I probably should have done was just cut at an angle. But I mean, it's not the end of the world. I can make a piece to fit in it no matter what. So I got to do that. Oh yeah, and I also had to hammer these inner cowl pieces because this piece here is the inner cowl. So you know, it's the piece in there with the vent. That's what this bolts to or welds to. And I had to hammer these out to get this to fit, and it still didn't want to fit here. So I actually took my grinder and I cut a notch in it right here, a slot, and then I widened it because I had to pull this together because I didn't want to bend this out anymore, so I had to pull that together. So that's another modification I had to make to it. And this seam here, I'll just line these 2 pieces back up together and then I'll weld it shut. No big deal there. So, and I don't need any of them holes anyhow. They're going to be plugged or welded, so they're gone. And of course, these holes here for the brake and the gas pedal and the clutch, they had felt in them. I took that out, and I got to cut all these spot welds out because it's a double piece. There's another piece in here that's welded to the floor pan, and that felt fits in there to keep the weather out. But I don't need any of that because I'm going to put the S10 stuff in it. So I need to cut all these spot welds out and remove these 3 pieces. No big deal there. And there's also a bracket right here where these 2 spot welds are. There's a bracket on the bottom side, and I got to remove that too. I don't even know what that's for. Probably, I don't know. You can see it up in there. Probably something to do with the gas pedal, I'm guessing. But I don't need that. I'm going to use the gas pedal out of the S10, so no big deal. Okay, so anyhow, that's how that looks. It was kind of difficult to get this thing in. I started, and here's the important thing that I wanted to make sure I got right when I put this thing in. And if you ever do one of these, you want to make sure you get that right. My most priority importance was on these each of these end pieces that fold over, there's a hole in the panel that the hinge bolt fits into, okay? There's one there and there's one there. And on both sides, show you this one. There's that one. So it's got a hole here and another hole here, and these are cut in the panel, and the hinge bolts stick through those holes. My first priority was to make sure all 4 of those lined up. So my first thing I did was I slid the panel in here and got it lined up close down here, but it wasn't right. It was just close. And then I worked on getting these lined up, and as soon as I got them lined up, I put screws in to keep it from moving. And then I went to the other side and did the same thing. And once I got all 4 of these lined up, then I knew that my hinges would be right, because this is the factory piece here. You know, it's the factory piece with factory holes. So I knew my hinges would be right on the hood. And now this one here, it didn't want to pull over far enough, so I had to drill a hole all the way through, and I had to stick a punch in there and pry on it, bend it that way to force it to come towards me to get the holes lined up. But I was able to do that, and then I held it in place with one hand and drilled a screw in there with the other. Once I got the screw in there, it didn't move. So as you can see, they're lined up really well. I mean, the hinges have some adjustments, so I'm not worried about it, but that is very close to where it needs to be. So I'm sure I can get, in worst case scenario, these pieces that the hinges screw into, they're just a plate that's been drilled and tapped. It's a rectangular plate that's about 2.5 inches long and maybe 1 inch wide, and it's got 2 holes in it that have been drilled and tapped, and it's just spot welded to the cowl piece here. So I mean, worst case scenario, if I had to, I could drill those spot welds out and move this piece wherever I needed to move it if the hood doesn't fit. But I think it's probably enough adjustment to be okay. I mean, if you look at this thing across there, it looks really good. It looks like it fits really well. I'm happy with it. Oh, another modification I had to make, this hole here on the cowl where the wire harness passes through, it was touching the bottom of this hole. So I just took my grinder and just ground a little half moon into it so it would clear that. And that's the only other modification I had to make to it that I know. So I still got to make these corner pieces and weld this in. And of course I got to weld the whole thing. I'm going to weld the whole thing in first and then pull all the screws out and then work on these corner pieces. But I wanted to get this done so I could get it finished out. And let's see, I did some more POR work. What did I do? I don't know. I did some more POR stuff. I can't remember what I did. I've done so much POR and I can't remember. Oh, crap. The drip rails. Yeah, here's the drip rails. So they are in, and they actually fit very, very well. This one here, it had a little bit I had a little bit of a problem getting it to line up right here where I made this weld, because it was kind of in a little bit, but I just welded it here and then welded it there, and then I just took a hammer and tapped on it gently to get it to go in. And as you can see, all the way around this thing, everywhere there's a shiny spot, I put a screw. I put a screw about 1 screw every inch all the way around this thing so it would get really attached really well. And another thing I did to it was, that was one thing I did with POR. I took POR and I painted the inside of this thing with POR before I screwed it in place, and then I let it sit and dry for a couple of days, because I wanted the POR to kind of create a little bit of a seal between the drip rail and the body. So, and plus it keeps it from rusting. So I let it dry for a couple days, and then I welded the holes shut, pulled the screws out, welded all the holes shut. And the funny thing was, when I pulled the screws out, it didn't even move because the POR dried so hard that it held it in place. I mean, what I did is I removed every other screw all the way around, and then I welded all the holes shut, and then I removed all the remaining screws, and then I welded all the holes shut, and then of course I ground them all down. That took forever to grind them all down. But they're both installed. They look great, as you can see. I mean, you can see how well they fit. They fit really good. I like it. I'm glad I decided to put new drip rails on this thing because I think it's going to really enhance the looks of it. I have to put some sealer down in there, and they make stuff. If you've ever never heard of it, it's called Drip Check Sealer. And Drip Check Sealer is actually kind of a thick liquid that you put. It's made for drip check moldings. And they call it a drip check because it keeps the drips from going on you. It checks them and forces them to go around either side of the door. So that's what they call it. But it's drip check sealer is what they call it. And I got to get some of that and seal these things up. And I got one thing I wanted to tell you guys is I got some of this stuff here called Barrier Bond brushable seam sealer. And this stuff, I don't know why, but every time I get this stuff in a can like this, I open it up and it's thicker than snot and it's hard to brush. And I put it on the seams here where this brace meets the kick panels. I put it there and it didn't look very good. It was kind of rough. So after it dried, and it's paintable once it dries. So after it dried, I went ahead and POR'd that to make it look a lot better because it just didn't look very good. And it looks okay, but you know, not great. And I took my urethane sealer that I put that drip check sealer in the can. I put it along this bottom edge too because I wanted a thick coat in there, so I didn't care what it looked like in there, and I put a really heavy coat in there. And then after it dried again, I POR'd it to make it blend because it's like a gray color, I think, and it just didn't look good, so I just POR'd it to make it blend in. And then I took my urethane sealer and I sealed these front channels all the way across so that when he's driving, if he runs through water, it doesn't go up underneath the channel. You know, I didn't seal this side. I'm not worried about this side, but I don't want water to go underneath there and settle in this channel and then start rusting it. So I did that. I sealed the battery hole that I had to cover up. I sealed the brake master cylinder hole. I sealed that with urethane sealer. And then the little corner piece I welded in there to cover up the emergency brake, the old emergency brake panel. I put urethane sealer on that too. And then of course when they dried, I POR'd everything just to make it all look the same. So it looks pretty good. And I just remembered something. I can't put this panel on because I have something that I have to do before I put this panel on that has to do with the S10, and I can't do it until I get the S10 back here. So I guess these are gonna have to stay off until it goes to paint. So I mean, no big deal, whatever. I can handle that, or I can, well, no, screwing them on ain't gonna help. So anyhow, that's where I'm at with all this, and that's why I haven't been here for the last couple days. I just need a little break. I was just getting too much overload. I'm not the kind of person, let me get this camera on the mount. There we go. I'm not the kind of person that likes to just go and work on one thing until it's done. You know, some people like to do that, but that's probably one reason why I own 20 cars is because I can get up every day and I can pick which one I want to work on that day. I don't have to work on, you know, or if I'm working on one and I need to finish it, you know, I can either work on it or I can, you know, take a break for a day and work on something else and go back and finish it. No big deal. But I needed a break from this thing. I've been working on it for almost 3 months straight, and I needed a little break. And so, but you can see what I got down here. I'm about done. I got to weld the cab on the bed sides. I got to weld the stake pockets on those. After I'm done with this, and then when I'm done with all that, I'm pretty much done until it goes to the body shop. So, I think that's about it. So anyhow, that's where it's at. And once I go home, I'm not going to be putting videos on here for a while of this because I got other stuff I got to do at home. I got cars I got to take care of at home. But I'm going to take the S10, drag it back home with me untouched, which sucks. Like wasting my gas, fuel, driving down with the trailer back of my truck with it on my truck. But I'm going to take it back home, and I am going to, once I get some parts sold off of it, I still have to mount the engine in it and the transmission, and I got to put all the mounts for this body to fit on that frame. I got to do all that, and it's a custom kit, and I'll do videos of that showing you guys how to do that, because I got instructions on how to do that. So once I get home and get some other things done, it'll be, you know, probably a little while, but I will try to put videos of other stuff I have, because I have other cars I got to work on when I get back home. So, and I've got some pretty cool stuff I think you guys will like. So probably another week or so of this, and then I'm going to go home and I'm going to take a little break and do some things I got to do. I got to get my taxes done, and then I'm going to start in on something there, and I'll make videos of that and keep bringing them to you guys. I appreciate you guys. Thanks for your patience and your understanding. You know, it's not easy doing this every day. I try to do as much as I can, but it takes time to do all this, you know, and try to do work at the same time. So, you know, I appreciate you guys watching my videos and talking to me and telling me what you think. You know, it makes me feel like it's worth my time if you comment and say, hey, good job, or whatever, you know. Or, you know, tell me something you don't like. You know, at least I know you're communicating with me. So I appreciate it. All right, guys, that's enough. It's like 2 o'clock or 1:30 in the morning. I got to try to get this thing welded before I go to bed. So, all right, guys, we'll talk to you soon. Have a good night. Bye.